Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Sam and Noah Show. This week we'll be discussing Donald Trump and his outrageous tweets, the coronavirus, is it a myth, and the LRT, what's wrong with it and can it be fixed? I'm Sam.
Hello, I am Noah.
And I guess we should hop right into it. So I find this really funny actually, but it's not funny at all. I just find it funny that Trump's president because he says these things, or he tweets them. He tweeted yesterday, crossing state lines to incite violence is a federal crime. Liberal governors and mayors must get much tougher or the federal government will step in and do what has to be done. And that includes using the unlimited power of the military and many arrests. Thank you, with an exclamation point.
Yeah, unlimited power. Like, he sounds like
That sounds like a
really
dictator to me. That doesn't sound much like
he has no restraints. He is
He's not an elected official at this point.
crazy. Yeah, he's dictator.
I understand if you agree with his political views and if you're someone who just, thinks that the economy comes before all and you agree with his military point of views, I understand why you support him or his ideas, but I don't understand how you support him as an individual when he says that kind of thing and threatens people within his own country.
So essentially what he's trying to say is people who go to other states to do protests, and because he's talking about violence being the protests, I'm assuming.
Okay,
I don't know if there's anything else going on.
Here's my issue with that. He's telling people to not protest violently, which is fine. I don't think they should either. But he's threatening them with violence. And
kind of
it doesn't make sense because they're protesting violence with violence, and then their retaliation is with violence as well. So none of this makes sense to me. This is just another civil war that's about to happen in the United States. I don't even consider it a country at this point anymore. I don't know what they're doing.
He's more like, have a taste of your own medicine, guys.
Yeah, but it's also them giving the government a taste of their medicine too, if they're combating against.
It's really dumb, and I think that tweet was also really dumb. Surprisingly, it has the most amount of retweets, in the last couple of days.
Yeah, I know. 66,000 retweets. Although some of those retweets might have been people retweeting them to say, how did you do that? How can you say that, you stupid buffoon? And the other half, I'm sure, is good on Trump from the U.S.
But either way, yeah, that's really ridiculous. Well, especially what's going on with all the protests in all over the U.S. I don't think it should be violent, as you said. At this point, they might have gone violent because the inaction on the part of the police department that had the police officer that killed the George Floyd. However, I still don't think it should be violent because.
Well, it's violent towards the wrong stuff, in my opinion. I don't understand why they had to target stores. I get the frustration and the rage, especially because the minorities in the United States have been oppressed for so long by, I guess, just the culture, the society in the U.S. And I say they shouldn't be violent, but I assume that if I was in their position, I'd get angry too and unleash this rage. But for me, I like to use the metaphor of in the playground when you get into a fight with a kid, the principal never says who threw the first punch. They always say, "Why would you fight? Don't
Both
don't
people
fight."
are in trouble.
Yeah, violence with violence just doesn't make sense to me. Especially if you're protesting violence with violence, it's just counterintuitive to me. I don't see this.
They should definitely try to work things out instead of trying to eliminate the opposition. Well, that's more directed at the government than at the people, because the people are trying to get the attention of the government.
Yeah, but if Trump really wanted this to end peacefully, he would not be saying this type of thing. What he wants to do right now is just gain votes by making the Democrats look as bad as possible. To say, hey, we're the Republicans, we're big and tough, and we'll protect you no matter what. But it's not really working. He's just making himself look like an idiot, and he's giving a bad image to the entire world on what Americans are. Obviously, not all Americans believe that, believe in his values and have that sense of arrogance and entitlement.
Mm-hmm. And now, if I'm looking at another one of his tweets, it says 80% of the rioters in Minneapolis last night were from out of state. They are harming businesses, especially African American small businesses, homes, and the community of good, hardworking Minneapolis residents who want peace, equality, and to provide for their families. So somehow Trump is trying to take the side of the minority as a rich white, like, definitely, like, I'm gonna say supremacist, but like that's what he seems. And he's trying to take the side of the people, when clearly before he says he's gonna arrest all the people or like use unlimited violence.
Yeah, I can't even express. I just don't understand how they voted for him. I just don't get it. There's other Republicans who had the same ideas as Trump. They just were better human beings than he was. Yet they still somehow found a way to elect this buffoon.
Buffoon. It's... Well, I mean, if you look at the statistics, all the liberal votes are from the big cities like New York, LA, Boston, like the coasts, essentially. Mm-hmm. And then most of the Republican votes are from the inland.
And Florida.
And Florida. But most of the population, I guess, or a good portion of the population is inland because it's such a big country. I don't know. It's messed up.
It's a lot different than here, too. I think that sometimes we forget that. Because in Canada, you know, when something like this happens, it's just not as common, I guess. Not that riots are common in the U.S. either, but
you definitely hear more of riots in the U.S. than you do here. I mean, there were the Hong Kong riots, but that was against the government. I guess it's the kind of, I don't know if you can say it's the same thing. I don't want to speak on the part of on the part of the people because I feel like I'm not in the right place to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak for the people who are protesting and rioting either, because I'm not there, and also even if I was in the States, I wouldn't really be affected by this because I have a bit more privileges, I guess, being white. Yeah. Because I'm the majority, basically, no matter where I am in North America.
Yeah, and if there's like someone who wants to come on and talk about that, like that, we totally would like to see that or have that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, let's try and stick away from riots and American politics because
dark subjects.
We don't want to say too much about that being Canadian because it's not really our jurisdiction. But let's get back to the coronavirus because this is kind of a reoccurring theme. And for all of you who thought this was a respiratory illness, you're wrong. It affects the circulatory system. So Elemental, which is a medical something, I don't know, this is a bunch of doctors who take scientific evidence and tweet every once in a while. They said that in April, blood clots emerged as a mysterious symptom of the coronavirus. Mm-hmm. Soon after, they began hearing reports of COVID-19 patients dying from strokes. For those of you who don't know much about strokes are usually caused by major blood clots in veins and arteries. And then came COVID toes, which is when your toes turn pink due to lack of circulation, likely also related to blood clots, but not always. And that's sort of how they came to this deduction. So here's my question. Is the coronavirus a myth, Noah?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that that blood thing, that must be like a mutation because it was a respiratory illness like a couple months ago because people were having like troubles breathing and stuff like that. But now that, it must have mutated in a horrible way. But is it a myth? Do you know anyone who has corona?
Yeah, I do actually. My aunt has the coronavirus. She lives in Quebec. But here's the thing. There's so many strands of the coronavirus that I don't even think you can call them all the coronavirus because they're almost not even the same thing anymore. Because as you were saying, it seems as if there's a mutation. Yeah. I'm sure if you took someone who had the coronavirus in Asia and you compared them to someone who has the coronavirus here in Canada, the strand, like the genetic coding would be entirely different. I don't even think they'd look similar. I don't know if the coronavirus is a retrovirus or what type. What I don't know what type of virus it is. I don't know if it uses DNA or if it uses RNA, but I'm almost positive that it would be incredibly different.
Well, full disclosure, I'm not saying I believe the coronavirus is a myth. I'm just throwing ideas out there for the fun of it because we have nothing better to do.
Yeah.
Literally. So, what if the coronavirus was a plan by the World Health Organization to help fight the battle against climate change? Because as you know, many factories have closed, a lot of businesses have closed. Essentially, the world shut down, which allows nature to come back. And as I think we talked about a couple of episodes ago, pollution in China had gone down for the moment, like crazy. I've definitely heard more birds chirp outside more than ever.
Yeah, I've never seen so many animals outside in my life. I saw a snapping turtle yesterday on the street. Not our street, but it was down by a pond. And I was like, this would never happen. If there was cars driving on the road, they would know where to be and where to stay.
Exactly. So who knows? That could be one possibility.
I think the coronavirus is a bioterrorist weapon. It's a bioweapon. It's for bioterrorism.
Yeah.
And I don't know who created it. My theory is that the Illuminati.
The Illuminati.
And that's why they planted it in China first, because that's where the most people are. And basically, these people watched Marvel Avengers, and they really believed in Thanos' ideas.
Yeah.
And they wanted to kill half of humanity, so they developed this virus, and their goal is to kill off half of mankind, or humankind, sorry. I'm not trying to be sexist.
That is very much possible, although I don't know how high the chances of that actually happening. I mean, if you've ever played Plague Inc., starting off in countries like China is a very good start.
Yeah, what's even more shocking is that the U.S. managed to get hit harder somehow.
Yeah.
But that's the testament of Donald Trump's fantastic work as president. And here's just a disclosure. I don't have a political stance on the United States because I don't really care, and I can't vote there. I'm just going after Donald because he's president. But if Obama was president, I would certainly try and dig stuff up too. It's just easier to find it with Trump because he likes to. That's Trump just likes to put it on my doorstep. But for Obama, I just have to look for it a little bit harder.
And I mean, we can't really criticize Trudeau. He looks too good.
Yeah, you can't attack a man who's more handsome than you are.
Yeah, so. Especially when he's speaking moistly.
There is nothing we can do for that. So quickly, before we run out of time, for those of you who don't remember, a few podcasts ago, Noah was talking about how much he liked trains. And in Ottawa, we just got...
Did I talk about that?
I think so. But
okay.
just to touch on the LRT for those of you who are living in Ottawa, Noah, I have to ask you, what's wrong with it? And is it possible to fix it before it's too late?
Okay. So I could talk for possibly hours without end about this subject. But I will keep it short to spare you the agony and pain of listening to me. So, here was the problem. In the winter, some doors would not close. In the winter, some wheels would have flat spots, which means it would be a very bumpy ride and they'd have to go into maintenance. Another problem, some of the wires fell down. So, a lot of things went wrong, considering it was two years, maybe even, I think it was 2.5 years behind schedule. But now that coronavirus happened, we have not really heard of problems from the trains. So, what could it be?
Are you saying that the coronavirus is causing trains to get repaired?
That is exactly and absolutely not what I'm saying.
Oh.
As much as that would be wonderful, I don't think so. I think the problem is overcrowding. They built the system in in a way that they thought would be enough for the people maybe a decade or two ago. They started planning this started building this in 2013, I believe. It was planned to open 2018, open 2020. No, it opened 2019 in October, I believe.
Yeah, but it mostly, started getting in trouble for being bad in 2020.
So, when they actually planned the idea, I mean, there was another rail before when Jim Watson wasn't our mayor. But I think what they did is they planned capacity for people in 2013. What they didn't realize is that a city grows. And as a city grows, there are more people. So with more people are going to be using the transportation system. And on day one, you really don't want your brand new, fantastic transportation system to be maxed out. You've essentially rendered it useless, and it already needs an upgrade. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, here's what I think went wrong from a planning perspective. So I don't actually know much about engineering and all that, so I'm sure there's some component to that. But I assume that when they were doing their graphing for expected population growth, they assumed we'd plateau around 2013. Now, of course, they were wildly incorrect because we did not plateau around 2013, and that goes to what you're saying. Just right now, we have too many people who take the O train, and because of that, it's just messed up.
Yeah, and so, like, if you've looked, even, like, when going to school, during rush hour, there were so many days where people were left behind because of a full train, and they were left to freeze in the cold. Sometimes some trains didn't come because the doors wouldn't close, which was wonderful. But now that coronavirus is here and nobody's taking the train anymore, the last incident actually of the LRT was on May 24th, and that was because of track maintenance.
So even when no one's taking the train, something's still going wrong.
Well, they're not going wrong, per se. They're just trying to make the system work for when people come back, which is why for the next couple of weekends, they are putting the train on, like, they're closing the train system and putting replacement buses so that the Rideau Transit Group, the group that's in charge of building the train system, can add software updates to the automatic trains so they can perform maintenance on the tracks and on the trains. So yeah, that's kind of a interesting thing that was going on.
Well, here, I have a question for you then. Do you think it was a good idea to build this train system or LRT system as a replacement for buses, or should it just have been an addition to the buses and kept all the buses?
That's a really good question. So in the state that the train is right now, I think it should have just been an addition to buses. Since they are planning to expand it with phase 2 all the way to Moody, south to the airport, and east to Orleans, that could have been a replacement viable option, because instead of feeding all the buses into one station at each end, people will get on at different stops, so kind of spread out the concentration of people. However, what they did now is they're like, okay, goodbye all the buses, we're changing all the routes and feeding them all to the end stations. And that's what's causing part of this kind of overpopulation thing.
So what do you think all the mistakes that have been made mean for stage 2 and 3? Are those going to be delayed as well, or are they going to be remodified? What do you think is going to happen with those?
So, as someone who likes trains, my fingers are crossed that they are learning from their past mistakes to make stage 2 more reliable, to maybe get it even done on time, because that would be
a dream come true.
The only unfortunate thing about stage 2 is that they have closed down the Trillium line between Bayview and I think it was Greenboro. which means that people going to Carleton are going to have to take a replacement bus service. And I'm going to Carleton, and I don't want to spend an additional half an hour to an hour in a bus going to school in the morning.
Yeah, that's really long, and it also defeats the purpose of having an LRT system, because the whole point's to get people to places faster.
But they're going to build new trains, bigger trains, faster trains, and I'm all for it. Bigger
but
trains,
is bigger really always better?
In this case, yes. Bigger is better.
Well, I guess that concludes our podcast. Thank you for tuning in this week, and we'll see you again next week. This is Sam and Noah signing off from the Sam and Noah Show.
Goodbye, guys. Take care.